Tottenham have a serious problem, and this is why. This is the successful and unsuccessful pass map of Bentancur during the Tottenham versus Aston Villa match, and just look how sideways the passing is. And anytime he's tried to go long, pretty much ever in the match, it's pretty much all been unsuccessful. I mean, look at that. Let me just signify the unsuccessful passes from deep, trying to go long to the right. All unsuccessful, even one short one here. Then let's just clearly look at the successful ones. The only progressive passes that seem to have done well is one here in the centre of the pitch through the middle, and then two pretty short passes out far wide on the left-hand side. We do not need this when we also bring alongside him João Palhinha's passing map. If we just take away Bentancur's a second there, you'll see that it is almost identical. Not as many, but the actual passing map is almost identical. And when we're playing at home, when we have high possession, we do not need two defensive midfielders that are both just going to pass sideways. We cannot progress the ball this way. In the same breath, let's just look at the passing matrix from the match, and you can instantly see an issue and why we are struggling so much at home. We are playing this U-shaped football at home, and we just aren't breaking teams down that are going to come in a mid block or a low block, teams that are just going to give us possession, which is why we've only won once at home, and that was a 3-0 win at Burnley in the first game of the season. And funnily enough, that was without Bentancur and Palhinha as the double pivot. It is not working at home. There was a lot of flack online for Xavi Simons yesterday, but I mean, I think this snapshot just proves that he was not getting the opportunities from our midfielders, because we lost Romero before the start of the match. He was supposed to start alongside Van der Ven, but Kevin Danso had to replace him in the lineup, and we just don't have any progressive passers that can create something through the middle of the pitch. So there's no wonder that Xavi Simons is going to get involved, because we couldn't physically get the ball to him. We weren't getting to the ball to him, and this is why I think it was a bit of a problem from Frank's side, not just the player. There's a lot of bashing on Bentancur, but we have a lot of historical data from Bentancur, especially this time under Conte, that his progressive carrying ability was really good, especially pre-injury. He was a fantastic player. I think this is all instruction based from yesterday's match, and I think we do have a big problem. Just simply look how many times, look, Bentancur into Simons, 3 passes all game. Simons receiving from Jed Spence twice. Odegaard was the one giving him the ball the most, which was 5 passes. No one else is providing anything for him. I'll show you some examples later on in this video, so make sure to stick around, like and subscribe. We'll show you exactly why we just weren't brave enough at home. That's the word I'm liking to use. We were not brave. We haven't been brave at home all season pretty much, and I truly believe it's down to the setup and the fact that we continue to persist with Bentancur and Palhinha as a double pivot at home. I mean, look, the heaviest passing from Bentancur, 18 times to Kevin Danso. What makes it worse is that even though it is I'm describing it as a double pivot, in fact, that game yesterday, you'll find that Palhinha actually pretty much played as an 8 instead of a 6. He was joining the attack in the box a lot of times when we were about to cross into the box. He was up and down a lot more than Bentancur was, and was getting involved further up the pitch, whereas a lot of the times, and again you'll see in some screenshots later on, Bentancur was the one that was sitting and holding. In my eyes, I think that's completely wrong. I think that is why we brought Palhinha in. That is his job, and then we're almost wasting another space in midfield where someone like Bergvall or Sarr, who both started the season off phenomenally well, have all of a sudden been cast aside, and now we can't seem to work out how to use them alongside Xavi Simons and someone like Palhinha in midfield. But let's look at another game where this double pivot, it works, and that was away to Man City 2-0. We barely had any of the ball compared to Man City. You can really clearly see the pattern of 2-4-4. I mean, it kind of in reality looked more like a 4-2-4, because a lot of the times you'll notice we were getting the ball, and the reason why it's so much with Vicario to Romero and Vicario to Van der Ven is because a lot of the times with goal kicks, he would pass them short to them, and they would pass short to either Porro or Spence out wide, and then a long ball would go over towards Sarr, Kudus, whoever it is, down the line, and we'll create chances that way. There's a clear pattern there away from home when you're under pressure, and how we're going to progress. Well, it's going to have to become from the fullbacks and trying to play it long. I understand that. At home, we're not going to have those opportunities, because teams like Aston Villa, they come and they sit back a little bit more compact and they give us time on the ball, which means we need to be able to find a way to pass our way up the pitch, like how teams like Man City can do really well. They don't just spam long balls forward. They're able to pass their way through up the pitch. They're able to carry their way through up the pitch. But there was no plan in that. In this game against Villa, it was very much just We'll have the ball in the middle. They sit off of us, and we'll pass it to Danzo. We'll pass it to Van der Ven. We'll recycle it to Porro. And we basically, and you can see how heavy we're sort of relying on this side. The plan was pass to Porro, make it long to Kudus, and let's just hope something happens from it. That is not sustainable football. And what I was saying about the fact that even though we're describing it as a double pivot because they're two defensive-minded players, what you'd find is a lot of the times throughout this match in particular, Bentancur was sort of the number 6. Palhinha was a bit further up in this sort of position, and Xavi Simons held this place a lot. He was very close to Odegaard and trying to link up on this left-hand side in the sort of half space. So in reality, this is really what it looked like more. The issue with that is once Bentancur got the ball, he isn't able to progress it well with a pass. We were playing it too safe. There wasn't that natural instinct to look up and play the balls through to people in the middle, whether that be Xavi or let's say Tel. I mean, Tel got no service whatsoever, and it's tough. I think he's some games he's having a tough time. I also think we aren't finding him that well. I don't necessarily think his hold-up plays that good, which is why I don't like him as a striker. And in fact, you can see why he's in so many similar positions to Odegaard on average throughout a match, because that is his best position. Tel is best in this sort of half space from the left-hand side. He is not a solo number 9. He either plays as a second striker, which there was that game, what game at home where we nearly scored that great goal. Him and Richie played alongside each other. Much better because he can run off the other striker as he's occupying centre-backs. Tel cannot be the striker that can keep 2 centre-backs busy and hold them off. He can't do that. Solanke can. Richie can't do it to 2. He can do it to 1. That's just not the type of forward Tel is. So it's a bit frustrating having him up there. And we're just not getting our only other creative outlet involved in this team. And I really do worry that Frank just isn't being brave enough at home in his team selections. And look, I think it's best to just show you some real world examples rather than just looking at a graph, because it's not all about data, it's about real world examples. So let's take a look at this. So here we have an opportunity where, in fact, Palhinha does a brilliant long ball over towards Wilson Odegaard on the left-hand side, which you can see in this position right here. It was great, it's fantastic. And there was, like I said before, there was so much stick being given to Xavi Simons about not wanting to get the ball. There's this demand for him to collect it from deeper positions. But the reality is our left-sided players and our midfielders weren't giving him the ball when he presented those opportunities. Like I said, it was all too safe. And this is such a big problem with Spurs at home. This is not a Brentford that are going to spend the majority of matches with less possession and are going to have to hit quickly on the counters. Those have worked brilliantly so far away from home under Thomas Frank. We are a top 6 club that needs to play like a top 6 club, especially at home when teams are going to sit off. And we're not playing with that brave, instinct to create really clear-cut chances. Look at Xavi Simons here. He's making a run. This is Odegaard taking his touch. We need to be a bit smarter with how we play, because one thing that I think Villa were really good at throughout the match was getting their players over to our wingers really quickly to put them under pressure. And you can see there's already 1-2 here. A third is joining. I think that's Kamara about to join the side. They did that to Kudus. They had about 3-4 players on him all the time. They know that's our strong point. That's what we want to do. We want to get the ball out wide. We want them to take on the fullbacks and get a cross in. Well, how are you going to stop that? Get 3 or 4 players surrounded by those wingers, and they're not going to be able to break through, which is why we need to be a little bit more switched on. Xavi Simons is making a nice, really good threatening run through the half space, and Odegaard decides to take a touch and hold on to the ball for a long time. He's holding on to the ball. The players are now settled. Look, there's 4 players now cutting off the opportunity for Xavi Simons. But even now in this scenario, you could still so easily play a ball in behind. There's big space. Xavi Simons is waiting for it. He's miles onside. It still doesn't come. So Xavi Simons has to peel off. Look, he's gone offside now. He's had to work his way back round. And Odegaard is now trying to take on 2-3 players. Doesn't work. Goes back towards Spence. And unfortunately, we have to now play it safely across to Palhinha. Across again to Porro, who plays it across to Kudus. Now, there was a lot of talks as well about we're not necessarily seeing attacking patterns of play against low blocks. I somewhat disagree. We're starting to see what we saw a lot of Brentford. There's a brilliant interview with James Alcott that Thomas Frank did at Brentford, where he said the best way by far to break down a low block or a mid block, teams that just sit compact, is you need to get the ball in, I guess, this sort of area is what he explained is the most important, sort of right on the edge of the area, near where Kudus is right now. And you want to cross the back post. And when I did this in a video in the summer when we're analysing Thomas Frank's tactics, what you would see Brentford do all the time was their striker, so Wissa last season, Sade, who was their left winger, and then it would either be maybe Damsgaard, maybe a centre mid, or sometimes Keane Lewis Potter, who was playing as the left back. Those three would stand in a direct line towards the back post, because that's where you got to deliver the cross in this sort of half space, and that created so many goal scoring chances. What can we see at the back here? Tell, Odegaard and Xavi Simons, because obviously he was out wide, far left in this sort of scenario. They're actually starting to set up what is looking like a good attacking opportunity that Thomas Frank would want to see. It's difficult when you're coming up against a team that's quite good aerially in Villa, or they seem to be in our game yesterday. Onana was winning every single header. But that's where there is no plan B. You then need to be able to create through the middle with intricate passing, something a little bit more creative, something you can't just coach with set plays, and we just weren't doing that at all. It was all a little bit too slow. But unfortunately, in this scenario, you can see that Kudus gets tackled. Fine, whatever. We need them to try and attack. But you can see the three arrive in the back post. So there was a clear vision, a clear game plan. Get the ball out wide, try and get into these half spaces and cross it into three players at the back post. I think the quality of crossing in general was pretty poor in the whole game, and we weren't doing it. But then that's where we need other options. It cannot be the same plan every time. Here's another opportunity. We've just won the ball back. I think Van der Ven and Bentancur were putting on pressure in the middle on Rodgers. They got the ball back. Here's Odegaard driving again, and Xavi Simons sees the opportunity to drive into the half space, so he does so again. Here, be a bit braver. And I know it's easier said than done, but top teams will do this. Odegaard, ball out wide. Xavi's driving into the half space where we want him to be. That's exactly where we want him to be. And unfortunately, again, holding on the ball too long. He's having to peel off before going offside. And then we're going to have to play it safe passing yet again. Three very close to each other on this side. He plays it to Spence. Spence and Odegaard are basically on top of each other in this sort of scenario. But look at this. Ginormous gap, because Aston Villa's job in trying to stop our chances was get out as wide to our wingers as soon as possible. What do we do here? Be a bit braver. Xavi Simons is calling for the ball. I don't understand why we're not. And look, I know it's easier said than done. There's three Villa players there. But this is what I mean. When you're at home, you have to try something a bit braver, a bit different, a bit more creative. And we just weren't offering that. If you're able to, whether it's a chip pass, whether it's a through ball when he's calling for it, I don't know. Xavi Simons is calling for the ball. We didn't get it towards him. Spence tries to deliver a cross, and unfortunately, it was a really, really poor cross. It went far too far, and it went off the pitch for a goal kick. But we're not going to create opportunities by not feeding it into our most creative asset. And this is why I felt a little bit sorry for Xavi Simons yesterday. I don't think he deserved as much of a pylon as he got on socials. And this is from someone I didn't quite expect as well. This is from Mohamed Kudus, driving forward. We're on a quick counter. And again, this is what I'm talking about. Not being brave enough. Be brave at home, please, Spurs. Mohamed Kudus, out wide, getting the ball in these positions. Xavi Simons running into acres of space because we've hit them quickly on the break. And this is the perfect example in this next shot right here. Look at the room. I'm not being funny. For someone of Kudus' quality, that is such an easy pass to make. And then we would have carved Villa open. And then you would have had an option of Odegaard on the left-hand side. He could have shot. But no. We hold up, we wait too long, Kudus is trying to go and take on the man again, and we just allow Villa to get settled. The passing options aren't really on there anymore, and look what happens. We recycle it back towards Palhinha, and they're sort of ready back in their defensive positions, and the option just isn't on. Same manoeuvre, we do this U-shape, get it across to the left-hand side. We now have Xavi Simons on the ball, next to Bentancur. He plays it into Spence, looking for an opportunity to have a ball flicked through. Look, he's making that darting run. We've seen this 3-4 times in the second half alone. No pass onto him. And there wasn't even like an inkling of Spence being able to go in to do that. He just held onto the ball to the side. Odegaard and Xavi Simons are now both trying to look for the ball in these sort of positions, trying to play attack from the middle. But what's the option that we take? Back to Bentancur. This whole thing about in-possession issues, it's not just an issue with Bentancur and playing Palhinha in the same time at home. It was happening a lot with Spence on the left-hand side. We saw that even Mohamed Kudus wasn't really taking up opportunities that he should have done, even though I still think overall he had a pretty decent game. It's just so frustrating. This isn't the easiest pass to make in the world. I totally understand that. But there wasn't a single thought in Bentancur's mind at this moment. Can I play this progressively forward? I think there are plenty of players in the league that can make a pass through the middle here. This, to be honest, in a Premier League match, this is a lot of room. He's receiving the ball in this position here. Everyone was talking about Xavi Simons not getting into the right space. It's crowded on this, Villa's right-hand side, our left-hand side. What does Simons do? Oh, let me just pull into the half space here, hoping to get a pass received into him. Nope. The absolute first instinct is turn around. Can I play this to Kevin Danso? And then we go out wide. And now we've allowed Aston Villa to just settle. 4-4-2, easy to defend. And that was just the story of our game. It was recycling more than a Thursday bin day. But yeah, another thing, like I said, it wasn't just the in-possession issues. I think with this game, we had Bentancur a lot deeper than Palhinha for the most part. I know Palhinha won so many tackles. He was great at recovering tackles and winning the ball back. But more often than not, we found situations where Bentancur was actually a lone six when Villa win the ball in transition. Palhinha was a lot more further up than we're sort of used to him being at times. And a thing that Bentancur wasn't do well for me was just the pressure on the forwards. I've just got a couple of examples, but there were so many times yesterday there was no aggressive intent, something like Palhinha does very, very, very well. Here we can see that Villa win the ball. This was when it was with Odegaard on this left-hand side. For us, sorry, I think, is it Digne? Not Digne, Digne's done, yeah. Cash, that's what it was. Cash had the ball, plays it forward to McGinn, and it's just a really soft press from Bentancur when he's driving into really dangerous space. And granted, it's not the greatest shot, but it just allows McGinn to have a shot off. He was constantly standing about 3-4 yards away from him. And this wasn't the only time this happened either. And a shot goes off, but that could have been, well, with the way the game was going, they got the 2 goals from outside the box. So that could have been another dangerous opportunity. Here's another one. Look, this is exactly what I'm saying. Bentancur by himself, isolated in this sort of situation because Palhinha was playing a lot more front-footed and aggressive, which I just don't understand. Personally, I think Palhinha is best suited to being where Bentancur was, and then having Bergvall, Sarr, they're so good at being this engine and pressing in this position. I don't understand why we are letting our defensive monster do this work so that when they do eventually go forward and they get the ball with Emi Buendia here, where's Palhinha? Where's our defensive monster that we're supposed to be having at the back? And again, soft pressing from Bentancur. Look, 3 players tried to get it off of him. It was a bit weak from all of them, whether that was Xavi, Palhinha, Porro. Bentancur just kind of covering space down in no man's land, but there was no communication with Odegaard whatsoever. There was no look to see, I think that's McGinn, whether he was in open space. Would you believe it? Another soft press from Bentancur, and they get a ball forward with Emi Buendia, and then they're on the attack. A very, very, very frustrating watch, and it's not the first time this season that has happened at home. On Wednesday against Monaco away, we probably will play Bentancur and Palhinha, but to be honest with you, in that sort of match, I don't mind it. Thought it should have been that way around. It should have been Bentancur and Palhinha starting at Monaco away, because that's going to be a tough game, especially Champions League. You can understand being a little bit more cautious in that sort of game and having a different game plan. It's unfortunate that Udogie had to pull out because I think he would have been great for the match against Villa, saving Spence to come up against Achillea for Monaco at midweek, but looks like he's going to have to do both games as well, which could cause a bit of an issue if there's a bit of tired legs there. But when you're playing these teams, Villa at home, Wolves at home, you cannot be playing 2 of the exact sort of same-minded midfielders in a double pivot against these sort of teams when you're going to have most of the possession. And I don't think it's actually intrinsically down to just the players. I do think there's a lot of... blame seems harsh, but I guess it is blame has to be put on Frank for that, because you can tell that it's an instruction from him to play this sort of way at home because, like I said, and you saw just there was not even an instinct from Bentancur to think, oh, is there a forward ball that I could maybe even drive into the space a bit more? None of that whatsoever. It was almost like you instantly received the ball in the middle of the park with 11 Villa players in front of you, 10 Villa, whatever it is. Let me just pass it along to Danso or Van der Ven, depending on the situation. Back round to Porro, and let's just hope Porro and Mohamed Kudus can whip across into the box to 3 players at the back, which we weren't actually doing enough. I think our best chances actually came from those Kevin Danso long throws that everyone's memeing at the moment because of the towel. But there was one where he threw it in, it fell to Odegaard, wasn't the best shot at all. I think Colin Mawani also had a good chance right towards the end of the game, very similar sort of situation, ball whipped in, completely mishits or misses the ball. So as much as we don't have necessarily a progressive passer in midfield available to us, I think if Maddison or Kulusevski were fit, you'd have to, in my eyes, play Palhinha, Maddison, and Xavi Simons as a midfield at home against these sort of teams that are going to give you the ball. That midfield would be fantastic. You've got Maddison who could drop in deep. Even Xavi Simons can drop in deep. You can clearly tell he was just not instructed to do so. But when these guys are getting into spaces, someone like Maddison is going to find that pass through to Xavi Simons in those areas. Spence wasn't doing it. Odegaard wasn't doing it. Bentancur wasn't doing it. There was just so much frustration in the way we're setting up at home at the moment, and I really think Thomas Frank needs to look into it and fix it because it's just not good enough. Still early days. I still 100% believe in Frank. I think he's a very, very, very smart coach. He will adapt to these situations. He's made us a lot more defensively solid. I think, unfortunately, we conceded 2 goals from outside the box where I think Vicario should have done a lot better in my eyes. A lot to work on and a very, very busy schedule ahead. So let me know what you think and how can we improve? Who could we look to in the January market to potentially fix these issues? Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.